You won't believe what I found. Right there on the surface of Mars, structures that shouldn't exist, perfectly shaped, hidden in plain sight, underground, and the most terrifying part, they were already there before we arrived, and they might still be. If you think Mars is just a dead rock, it's time to think again. Because what no one told you is that Mars isn't empty. Mars is alive with secrets, ancient civilizations, abandoned bases, and maybe something that never left. But here's the real question. What's really going on under the surface? And if they're already there, why are the most powerful people on Earth suddenly desperate to get there too? Imagine detecting symmetrical, aligned formations deep beneath the Martian surface, with no plausible natural explanation. That's exactly what NASA and other space agencies have found. Tunnels, domes, and geometric patterns hidden underground. None of it should be there, but it is. And the strangest part? Many of these findings are no longer in public reports. Few people notice, but some images were quickly removed from NASA's databases, replaced with blurred or low-res versions. What were they trying to hide? Some independent researchers managed to save the originals, and what they show is disturbing. Cylindrical cavities carved into stone, as if something or someone has been digging from the inside. No seismic activity, no natural origin. The official theory? Ice shifts, erosion, or spontaneous collapses. But what if it's the opposite? What if these structures are artificial and intentional? Scientists like Thomas Waters from the Smithsonian have even suggested that Mars hides massive underground voids. But that was just the beginning. What came next was even stranger. Few have the courage to speak out, but some former NASA collaborators have broken the silence. In obscure forums and encrypted interviews, they've started revealing something even more bizarre: active underground facilities on Mars. Yes, active. With stable heat signatures, controlled gas emissions, and pulsing electromagnetic signals. None of this should exist unless someone built it. One of the best-known cases involves an engineer known only as JH. He claimed to have worked on a top-secret Martian subsurface mapping project. According to him, the US and other world powers have known for decades about activity pockets beneath Mars's crust. He stated that probes were programmed to avoid specific areas. But why? The answer is simple and shocking, because those areas are already occupied, and not by humans. JH isn't alone. Others have described hexagonal structures, underground routes, and even signs of intelligent movement captured by sensors. If all this is true, then what's down there has been watching us longer than we've been watching the stars. In 2022, a photo taken by the Curiosity rover went viral. It showed what looked like a rectangular cut in a Martian hillside. NASA dismissed it as a geological fracture, but nobody bought that. The portal, as it was nicknamed, has clean angles and shadows indicating depth. It doesn't look like a crack. It looks like an entrance. Conspiracy theorists and former employees began speaking out. They said the opening had been known for years, and the rover's discovery was just a staged reveal. The strangest part, soon after the image was published, transmissions from the probe were cut off for several hours. Coincidence? Or was something happening on the other side? You won't believe this, but days later, low-frequency signals were detected coming from the portal's region. Frequencies that had never been recorded before and never repeated. It's as if something had been activated or awakened. If that's truly an entrance, then whoever built it is far beyond our understanding. And what lies behind that door might change everything. Few know this, but orbital probes have detected underground areas on Mars with temperatures way above normal. In places that should be frozen solid, we're finding constant localized heat. NASA blamed it on geological anomalies, but thermal experts disagreed. Rocks don't heat themselves like that, not unless something's working underneath. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter was the first to report these findings, but instead of further investigation, the reports downplayed the data, calling it thermal noise. It doesn't add up. One such hotspot near Elysium Planitia has maintained heat for over 5 years. No change, no cooling. It's as if a generator or reactor is operating down there. Now think about it. If there's heat, there's energy. And if there's energy, there's a source. And if it's not natural, it's artificial. Independent researchers believe these are alien power stations, still running after millennia, or still being used. If that's true, what are these underground bases still powering? Have you ever heard of Project Red Sun? Most haven't, and for good reason. This alleged joint mission between the US and USSR supposedly sent humans to Mars in the 1970s. Officially, it never happened. But leaked audio, obscure documents, and witness accounts suggest otherwise. Something was launched and never returned. The question is, did they make it? Theorists claim the project not only existed, but that it was just the beginning. Today, secret human bases may already be operating on Mars, built in cooperation with extraterrestrials. That's why certain regions are always off-limits to probes. Not because there's nothing there, but because there's too much. One suspected location? A depression near Mars's south pole, where satellites have picked up artificial electromagnetic activity. If this is true, what's happening down there? Training programs? Genetic experiments? Or silent collaboration with an alien race? Some former military officials say these bases are preparing for a global collapse on Earth. Others claim they're where the real decisions about our future are already being made. But that leads us into even darker territory. During a seismic detection mission, faint but rhythmic signals were recorded beneath Mars's surface. At first, scientists assumed it was ice shifting, but the frequency didn't match. The pulses felt organic, like breathing. Months later, the InSight team stopped releasing seismic data. Just like that. In 2023, a low-profile study suggested that underground saltwater lakes on Mars might support microbial life. But the language was cautious, too cautious. According to the BBC, those deep lakes could sustain complex life. So why isn't anyone digging deeper? And what if these signals aren't from microbes, but something far larger, something alive, something waiting? Science may stay silent, but the data doesn't lie. Repeating frequencies, timed pulses, and if they aren't natural echoes, what if they're attempts at communication? Have you noticed how anything strange about Mars quickly fades from the news? Promising discoveries vanish. Scientists get reassigned. Projects shut down without explanation. Is it all just coincidence? Or is someone controlling what we're allowed to know? Independent researchers say there's an international policy of plausible deniability. If something strange is found, it's instantly discredited. Called a sensor glitch, a natural formation, or worse, ignored completely. But with anomalies stacking up, the cover-up is starting to crack. So ask yourself, if there's nothing to hide, why the silence? And if there is something, what exactly are they protecting? Or maybe, who are they protecting it from? Maybe the real reason no one talks about Mars is because they're already down there. You won't believe this, but satellite photos show what appear to be ruins on Mars. Rectangular structures aligned like city blocks. One region, Cydonia, has what looks like an ancient city, with pyramids, grid-like patterns, and of course, the famous face on Mars. NASA explained it away, but the more they explained, the less people believed. Here's the theory. Simple and terrifying. Mars once hosted a civilization. Something advanced. Something that vanished in a cataclysm. Some say they destroyed themselves. Others say they were wiped out by something else. But what if some of them survived? And what if the underground bases are their final shelters, waiting for the right moment to resurface? Researchers like Michael Salla and even engineers like William Tompkins have suggested Mars was once inhabited, not by microbes, but by beings who mastered architecture, energy, and maybe even interplanetary travel. If that's true, then these bases are more than shelters. They're gateways to an empire we forgot. Few talk about it, but the military's involvement in Mars missions is much deeper than it looks. Many NASA projects receive partial funding from the US Department of Defense. But why would the military be interested in a lifeless planet? If Mars is just a rock, what's the strategic value? In 2018, documents released under the Freedom of Information Act revealed secret collaborations between NASA and US space commands. One document referred to unmapped Martian territories. Territories? That implies ownership. These aren't just pictures from orbit, they're references to physical zones with restricted access. Now imagine underground bases really do exist and are already occupied. What's being sent there? Weapons? Personnel? Or worse, negotiations with non-human intelligence? The military's presence changes everything, because wherever there are weapons, there's fear. And where there's fear, something is out of control. Have you noticed how suddenly it's okay to talk about UFOs and aliens? It used to be a joke. Now it's an official topic in Congress. But why? Is it just curiosity? Or are they preparing us? What if these recent revelations are part of a long-term strategy to ease us into the truth? Many believe in controlled disclosure. The government releases tiny pieces of truth, just enough to prevent panic. First, blurry videos, then declassified documents, now military testimonies. And tomorrow, maybe the next step isn't to admit aliens exist, but to reveal where they are. And what if one of those places is Mars? Think about it. What if all the silence about underground structures is just a cover? A way to keep it quiet until the time is right. Because maybe contact already happened. And the reason no one talks about Mars is because they never left. This one is dark, but it keeps coming up. Rumors of genetic experiments being conducted off-world. And Mars, remote, unmonitored, inaccessible, would be the perfect lab. No journalists, no oversight, no rules. Now imagine combining human technology with alien DNA. What exactly are they trying to create? Leaked reports tied to DARPA mention interstellar biological adaptation. In other words, engineering organisms that can survive beyond Earth. Some sources claim these experiments were moved to Mars, under controlled environments, underground. A former biologist, known only as Dr. Me, claimed, "There are life forms on Mars we created, but they're not ours anymore." If that's true, then these bases aren't shelters, they're labs, incubators. And if something goes wrong down there, or escapes, no one's around to stop it, no one except them. That's when mystery turns into warning. Because whatever they're doing on Mars might not stay there. Here's where things get crazy. Some symbols found on Mars look exactly like those of Earth's oldest civilizations. This isn't theory, it's documented. In 2016, researchers compared Martian land patterns with the Nazca lines in Peru. The similarities? Stunning. Perfect lines, spirals, geometric codes, all on Martian soil. And that's not all. Several pyramids found on Mars share dimensions and angles with the Great Pyramid of Giza. Coincidence? Maybe. But this pattern repeats in at least 3 different Martian regions. If these structures are artificial, and if they resemble ours, then someone has been to both planets. Could this be the strongest proof that the aliens on Mars were the same beings who visited ancient Earth? That our earliest civilizations weren't the beginning, but just one branch of something bigger? Some theorists believe Earth was the colony, Mars the capital. And if that's true, then these underground bases are more than relics. They're remnants of a forgotten empire. In 2022, NASA's InSight lander picked up something strange. Sounds. Vibrations coming from deep within Mars, but not random rumbles. These were rhythmic, pulsing, steady, like a heartbeat. Like a signal. The recordings were made, but shortly after, the reports vanished. No further comment. A small audio snippet leaked on a European forum. The sound? Low, deep, almost hypnotic. Listeners described it as unsettling, yet familiar. As if something ancient was trying to communicate. Could it be a still active machine? A sentient being? Or a warning we don't yet understand? Regular vibrations from beneath the surface usually mean activity. But Mars isn't known for seismic movement, so what's generating it? If it's technology, it's still functioning. If it's alive, it's still breathing. And if it's a message, it might not have been meant for us. But now, we've heard it. Look around. Billionaires, governments, and private companies are racing to reach Mars. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, ESA, China, India, all pouring billions into it. But why? Is it really just exploration, or do they know something we don't? Some leaked files suggest private government partnerships are targeting specific regions of Mars, the same regions showing signs of underground cavities. They're not going to build something new, they're going to find something old, or maybe even something waiting. Now ask yourself, if the world's elite are desperate to reach Mars, is that coincidence? Or has something already been discovered? Something involving aliens, UFOs, and a truth too big to keep hidden forever. Because maybe Mars isn't just the next step. Maybe it's where it all began. Here's the question no one dares ask. What if it's all true? What if those underground bases are real? What if intelligent life is already on Mars, right now? What would that mean for history? For science? For us? Everything starts to connect. The censorship, the whistleblowers, the disappearing data, the heat signatures, the structures, the signals, the portals. Each piece points to a truth no one wants to accept. Because if they're already there, we're late to the party. The scariest part? Maybe someone here already knows. Maybe that's why it's all been buried. Hidden, denied, but truth has a way of surfacing. The real question now isn't, is there life on Mars? It's, what else are they hiding from us? Now that you've seen all this, what will you do with it? Forget? Ignore it? Pretend it's just sci-fi? Or will you start asking questions? The kind they don't want you asking. Because if even half of this is true, everything changes. What if Mars isn't just our future, but our forgotten past? If this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and share this with someone who deserves to know the truth.